And what a good day. Again, the name is Paul Lawrence Van, and I lead YouTube channel Leadership is Influence. And I'm glad that you could be with me today. I have several videos that are in the playlist and would love for you to take a look at all of them. And it's, again, all about leadership. Now, what I'm going to talk about today is actually going to be a case study, if you will. And it's going to be coming from a personal experience that I've had, which I think that you would find pretty intriguing and very interesting. And the way I'm going to set this up is I cannot name who the president was of the United States at the time, and I can't name the project that I worked on, but it's going to consist of it coming from a leader with a title. Now, let's go down this lane here. I always talk about the three-legged stool, which includes the leader with the title, a supervisor, and the employees. And they all have a leadership position. And there's what I mean by having a leadership position, that even if you're an employee, you have a role as a leader. If you're a supervisor, you have a role as a leader. And then, of course, the designated leader of an organization. And so that's where I'm going to be operating from today, and really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. And I will keep it to the standpoint where we get a good lesson out of this, because I always want you to take a good lesson from what I share with you. Okay, so I am working in the Pentagon at this time, and of course, I've served there 12 consecutive years. And one day, this project came down, and everybody was saying, okay, well, who's going to manage this program? Because it was really outside of my normal duties. It was a special project. And again, the leader with the title was actually the President of the United States of America. It's getting interesting, isn't it? Well, to make a long story short, we had to get some products to another country. And in so doing, I had to organize everything. There were millions of dollars that were involved in this particular project. And I had to coordinate not only with the United States, but also with a foreign government. It's getting really intriguing, isn't it? And I took that project on, and it took me maybe a couple of days just to get the logistics down pat, which meant I had to contact other, and of course I'm in the Air Force, I had to contact other people in another air unit within the Air Force, like the Air Force Reserve or the Air National Guard. And this is a big project, and we were getting it to one of our allies. And so the way this all happened is I looked at the logistics of everything, outreach to the foreign government through a liaison officer. And again, this is coming from the leader with the title. Well, you know me, I really jumped on this project because I knew the impact of it when everything would succeed. So I had to coordinate getting the money together for the different units that would actually refuel some aircraft that was going to said country. And in so doing, I was able to coordinate with refueling. So when we have a plane or a jet going to another country, they can't go there on one tank of fuel, if you will. They have to be refueled halfway there or three-quarters the way there until they actually land. And so I had to do a lot of coordinating with that, which meant there were several different organizations that I was working with. And in the end, it all worked out. It was a special project. It made it to the Allies country. And the particular program that I worked on for the product services and products that we provided is even in use today. So as you can tell, I'm really holding back a lot because I have no choice, but I wanted to share this with you. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're working between different governments and coordinating between different organizations. And so what primarily happened, we had to get some people to fly some aircraft to another country. But before that happened, the aircraft had to be prepared. You have to prep them and get them ready to go to another country. You can't just say, okay, I want this one, that one, and this one. It's not like going to a car dealership, something like that. And so we were able to get the aircraft, get the pilots, get the refuelers to meet them halfway to where they were going, and then ultimately they would be delivered. So it was a full squadron of jets that was in this particular project. And as a result of it, all the logistics. So let's get into our leadership piece now. Okay, the message came down, a special project from the President of the United States to the Secretary of Defense, and then on to my commander. So there are different levels of leadership that were involved. And they were looking for just one lucky young captain at that time, which was me. And I took on this project, and mainly because I had a background in money and finances and budgeting and cost estimating. That's the primary reason why. And I know how to get the resources to where they needed to get to in a timely manner. And so as a part of that three-legged stool, of course, we had the leader with the title, we had the supervisor, which one could say was my commander, and then me as the employee, or in this case, a military officer. And I coordinated with everyone, reached out, called, emailed, everything that was necessary to get everything going. So when the aircraft departed from a certain state within the United States, and let's say it got close to Europe, then it had to be refueled because it burned so much fuel in flight. And that was actually done. So we would have coordinate with some refueling aircraft. They would, kind of like a gas station in the sky, if you will. And I've actually been on aircraft where it was being refueled while we were in flight. And you can actually go up to the top of the plane where it's actually happening. It's almost like if you putting gas in your car and you go to the gas station, you put the nozzle in there. Well, it works the same way with aircraft, but except they do it in the air, which to me is very dangerous. And I've even had planes that refueling us and they're just above us. So there's no room for error. There's no rooms for mistakes. And it typically works out because that's been done many, many times before. And so getting back to my role, we had X number of aircraft that were prepared to go to an ally. We had the refueling units that were ready to provide the gas station in the sky. Then we had the pilots, of course, who from their different units within the United States would fly them over. And then once they got there, they would leave the jets there. And they, of course, would be flown back on one of the Air Force planes. And so all of this happened. And the end of the story is that there was actually a red carpet ceremony that was actually on television. I was able to see it happen, which I thought was very, very cool. And so it gives you that perspective of leadership at the highest order. And in this case, I'm talking about the leadership with the title. And so perhaps at the organization you work with, it won't be at that level. However, it's just important to know that these things do in fact happen. And as a result, you have to be prepared. And so I've always talked about the fact that if you're an employee or a supervisor or manager, that you still have a leadership role. And the role that I had with this project, it was a leadership role. I could not afford for something to go wrong. I coordinated up and down. I kept my management apprised of the project. And then, of course, they would apprise the president of the status of the project. And so uh, when I look back at this is one of the most important projects that I've ever worked on. And it's one that I'll always remember. And I'm telling you this because I want you to also understand that no matter what the project is that your supervisor and the individual with the leadership title at the top, you can do this. If I can do it, you can do it. And that's why I come on these YouTube videos and I share this information with you because I want you to become a better leader. I want you to become also a leader of influence. And so, how do you become a better leader? Well, you assess where you are right now. Maybe you've never had a leadership role at a high level, but we all have to start somewhere. When I first started out in my leadership, at some of my first Air Force assignment, I didn't have that level of leadership, even though in my first year I worked with people from the Pentagon, which was pretty heady stuff for a brand new second lieutenant, Air Force second lieutenant. But you find yourself, you non-military, you may be a contractor, or you may work for a major corporation, whatever it may be. The reason why I ultimately was positioned to take on high-level projects is because I never refused to take on a project. I was a very curious person. I asked a lot of questions. And sometimes the answers I received, I was like, I wish I hadn't asked that question. But you learn from that. And as a result, what I'm encouraging you to do is to always ask questions, always make yourself available, if possible, make yourself available so that you can learn at a faster pace. And over time, you will be recognized and known as a go-to person or a person that the leadership and the management can come to because they know you would get that project done. And that's pretty much what had happened to me my entire career in the military. I was a go-to person, and I never um, doubted my abilities. And I didn't want to, first of all, disappoint myself, but neither did I want to disappoint my leadership, management, nor the organization I work for. My role was to make them better at the time I arrive, at the time I depart, to make that organization better as a result of some skills, expertise, knowledge, and the abilities that I had. And so I want you to have the same thing. And these are things you want to think about as you continue to develop yourself as a leader. And again, that leader in a role of an employee, that leader in the role of a manager, and of course, we always know that three-legged stool, the role of the leader who has the title, who's in charge of everything. And so let's say you have a project that you're working on, and maybe what your leaderships want is to increase the productivity of the organization, depending on if you have the products. For all intents and purposes, I always use the example of widgets. That's kind of like one of the common words that's used, like little small items, and you're just going to produce more. Instead of producing, let's say, 20 per day, you want to develop, and leaderships want you to develop maybe 30 or 40. And by the end of the week, you have a lot more than you normally would have producing 20 widgets. And so if you're on this productivity line, ultimately, the things that you're producing are going to result in sales. And oftentimes, before the sales actually occur, you are marketing to the different clients that you're with, and you're also trying to interest new clients in that process. And as a result of that, it's going to improve the one thing that we all know is the business performance. How much did you sell in revenue this quarter compared to the last quarter or compared to last year at the same time? And so these are all things that you want to consider, but you won't know this unless you ask questions. And I talk to people all the time and I said, do you have any questions? And they say, no. I said, well, you must be the smartest person in the room if you don't have any questions, because I have not shared everything with you that you need to proceed. Okay. And so we always have to position ourselves, but always ask questions. And trust me, there are no dumb questions. All questions are relevant to you and your experience. They're unique to me and my experience. And so you always want to ask questions. You always want to know what is the deadline for the project. You always want to know if there's a budget attached to it, what is the budget? And then you need to know if you have the proper manning or personnel to help complete the project. And then you want to keep your managers and leadership apprised of the status that you're able to position yourself in the first week or the first 2 weeks or the first month. And depending on the size of the project, it may be even longer. But you always want to keep everyone in the loop. You don't want to have them leadership and management coming to you asking you questions. You want to go to them and say, well, this is where we are right now. This is how much further we have to go. We're within the budget, within the schedule, and that production line has increased. And as a result, we're not only going to meet the target, but we're actually going to exceed the target. And so that's good news. And it's also good experience. Now let's take that same scenario and say that you're coming underneath or lower than the expectation. You're not producing as much. Well, there's always ways to tweak things and maybe sit down and have a brainstorming session and find out how you can increase it. But even if there's a failure, failure is not final. You just simply come up with another solution, because with everything that you do, any job you work on, you're there to solve problems. So you're a solution-based person. And if you keep that in mind, well, how can I solve this problem for my organization, for my company? If you stay focused in on you being a solution-based individual, you will always be successful. You don't want to add to the problem. You simply want to resolve it. And so the next person in line, next woman or man who's in line in the position you're in, they will have more than enough documentation and fellow colleagues and peers that can help them on that project. And that's really what leadership is all about. Leadership is really all about developing other leaders within the organization. And again, they don't have to have the title of leader for this to happen. You want to get everybody on the same wavelength, meaning, okay, this is the vision of the leader. This is the mission that we have. And we want everyone to know exactly what their role is. And then we're going to operate from the position of what? Not mediocrity, but we want to operate from a position of excellence. And we want to have our team to be the best team that it can possibly be, not compared to any other team, but within our organization. And we're going to do something that's never been done before. And I've been on many teams and many organizations where we had just exceptional, talented people. And they had the support of the managers and the leaders. And we received organizational excellence awards for going above and beyond the call of duty, if you will, by giving our all, never looking at the clock, but coming up with new concepts, creativity, new ideas to help make a difference for our organization. And when you find employees and managers who are really committed, they want to be a part of the company. They want to play an integral role or be what I call a cog in the wheel. And they want to be known as a person that I'm a team player. That's what people want. They want to be actively involved, and people in their heart of hearts want to make a difference. And that's what we need to always keep in mind. We know that people want to make a difference, so we have to position them to do so. And one of the other things is that we also, when we're working hard like this, we want to also position ourselves for upward mobility. Perhaps you want to take a leadership development workshop. One, the type that we offer here at Wealth Building Academy, LLC, we offer a 4 year or 6 months or 4 months leadership development workshops for people. And it just will give you a competitive edge compared to others in your industry. And you want that to be very standardized. You want to have a very standardized process. Now, again, I want to share another story with you. And this is when I was in the Air Force for over 20 years. But at the 8 year mark, I had this itch that needed to be scratched, and it was to work for a Fortune 500 company. It had always been one of my dreams and one of my goals. And at the 8 year mark, our two terms in the military, 2 assignments, I separated and I went to Mobil Oil Company because they recruited me. It came down between them and Michelin Tire. And so I decided to go with Mobil Oil, and eventually I worked for Mobil Chemical Company. And then if I had worked, and that was in Texas, if I had taken the position in Michelin, I would have been in Greenville, South Carolina. And so again, I would have been in a leadership position without the title. And so I decided to go with Mobil Chemical. I worked as a financial analyst. And one of the big projects that came up for that was we purchased a new facility. And in that new facility, we had to set up all the finances, all the accounting. We had to see and ensure that it could produce the amount of product that we needed to meet our goal. It was in a different state. It was not in Texas, it was actually in Louisiana. And so I had to go travel there to work with the people and ensure that we had everything all set up. And it was a great project. Again, something I had never done before, but to me, it was all about, I want to get experience in this area. You know, I want to understand what it's all about in the oil and gas industry. And of course, it had nothing related to the military other than they all have finances, they all have budgets, they all have schedules. It's just a different service or product that they provide. One, military, national defense. Mobil Oil Company, oil and gas, right? And so, and in that project, we had to go out, conduct an assessment of it. In many ways, it was a audit, a mini audit, if you will. And we needed to find out how much can we produce, how much revenue can we generate from it? Do we have enough people to actually do the work at this new facility? And then how do we get it off the ground in our name at that time, Mobil Chemical Company? So, you know, again, it's another project. I had no background in oil and gas prior to getting there other than pumping gas in my own car. But we dealt with the project products, benzene and toluene. So if you go to the gas station and you're fueling your vehicle and you smell this smell, that's what benzene and toluene is. And it's a mixture that goes in there. And so I just learned, I had to learn some chemistry, a lot of chemistry. I had to learn all the logistics involved, not only land-based, but pipelines, and I had to learn wharfs. You put it on the water and ship it to different places up the Mississippi River, or one had to put it on the trucks. You may put some on the train. And sometimes when we didn't have the product that we need to get to our clients, we would actually purchase it from one of our competitors and vice versa for them as well. But all of it has to do with leadership, and it's all about you having to understand your role. One of the things that I always tell people is, if, for example, if you go to a new company as a very first time employee, or if you're going as from a promotion, upward mobility to another company, the first thing you want to do is find out, how does this organization operate? Because if you never understand how they operate, you're always going to be guessing, and typically you'll be guessing wrong. And so what happens is that you want to ask, all right, I know the company, I know the brand, but what is my role? And then what is your role on the team? And then how do you best support the managers? And then how do you best support the leadership itself overall? And that's what's important. And I did have opportunities at Mobile to attend different courses. I attended an ethics courses for corporate leaders. And I attended that with people from different divisions of Mobile from all over the country. And it was a 2 year, not a 2 year, I'm sorry, but a 2 week program where we would go in the first week, we'd study the material, and then we'd come back for the final week. And it turned out really great. I learned a lot from other people. We have like a plastics division, we had a polyethylene division, we had just different divisions. I was there, of course, with the petrochemicals itself. And so you can always learn something. And then this is what happened. I ended up being recalled into the Air Force. And so I had spent 2 years at Mobile there at Texas, and I got recalled to the Pentagon. I got recalled back to the Air Force, but my assignment was going to be in the Pentagon, which it was. And I was at the Pentagon, ended up being there 12 years, but I took those experiences from Mobile Oil and I applied it to the work and assignments I had at the Pentagon. And so it made me actually a more unique military officer and serving our country. But again, going back to the products and services or acquisition management, if you will, for the Pentagon, for the organization I work with, the U.S. Air Force and the Air National Guard. And so, again, what I want you to take from this is that no matter what position you job you apply for and you're actually hired for it, learn what the business operation is. And then you learn how to help it operate more efficiently and how you can help it operate with more productivity, or how you can add some innovation and how you can strengthen the team that you're on. And we want teams that are inclusive and we want teams that are diverse. And typically, and I have a background in diversity training. The training, most people just think of individuals' ethnicity or one's gender, but it's much deeper than that. It's actually the entire experience, life experience of an individual. And it doesn't mean that it's an ethnic issue, a person's background culturally, but it has more to do with their life experiences, things such as, well, what is their education? Were they prior military? Were they as part of a union? What is their belief in faith? Are they married? Do they have children? Have you ever been in leadership before? So there are a lot of different areas that you look at when you take into consideration the organization structure itself as a part of leadership. And to be able to work for an organization that has a workplace that has safe workplace, you're in a great organization. So if you happen to be in one right now, pinch yourself because you're in a very special place. It means that you can come in, you can share your thoughts and ideas. You don't have to force yourself into that process, but you're a vital part of the organization and you are helping to build something that's very unique and very special. And it's very important that you find ways to help make it better. I know in the Air Force and the military, they have what they call a suggestion program. So let's say, for example, I make a suggestion that we can cut out working late into the evening if we work more efficiently in the day, in the regular work hours. And the reason why is because the later you work, the more time you might have away from your family. And of course, you want that work-life balance. You want that to be a part of the process. And you don't want people to get burnt out. You don't want people to resent the fact that they have to always work overtime or they can't see their family. Their child may have a soccer match, or they may be on a different team sports, or they may be in a debate class or some theater at the school, and you want to be able to allow yourself to be able to do that. And, some people, they feel guilty about not working overtime, but you should not feel guilty. Just find ways to make things work out more efficiently. And if you can still come up with the results that the organization needs, then you won't have to work overtime and work late into the night as you fight your way through that traffic. For example, I'm here in Washington, D.C., and when I first arrived, the traffic was just ridiculous. And I would find myself, instead of making it a drive should only take maybe 30 minutes, and end up taking an hour or 2 hours. And so you want to avoid these type of situations, but you want to be productive. You want to play a vital role in your organization moving forward and helping to build it to be strong. And so when we again go back to the leader with the title, these are things that the leader with the titles needs. And let me share something else with you as it pertains to the post-pandemic workforce and workplace. It's a lot different than it used to be. It's more of a hybrid situation in many instances, depending on the industry. And people are just not going to work overtime. They may work from home. They want to avoid that commute, and they may come into work maybe 2 or 3 times during the week in the physical office location, but they're working from home. They're doing it virtually, and even a lot of training, just like I'm have this particular YouTube session here. It People are just doing things differently than they used to, and not only that, but the leadership with the title has to understand that they could lose some of their top talent unless they make some accommodations, and they're flexible with the work schedule. And so these are things people have to consider now in this post-pandemic environment. And then lastly, I want to share a story that and an experience that I had. I think some of you all know that I had worked as a Capitol Hill Fellow, so I worked for a member of Congress for a year. And I was in a fellowship program with other military people, but we just wore a suit every day. And I was a legislative assistant to a member of Congress who was on the House Armed Services Committee. So I handled a lot of the military issues, not only for his constituents, but also for the national defense as well. So it would be either working with the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, Merchant Marines, you name it. And then I also work with the VA, the Veterans Administration. And so we not only work with those organizations, but different government agencies as well. And so I did have a project one time where individual was a pilot, and he was serving in overseas, and he had a request. The congressman had a request that came in from one of his constituents who happened to be a mayor in one of the cities in the state or the district that he represented. And his son had refused to fly on a mission. Of course, I would not name the mission, but it was an important mission. And on this particular mission, if he refused to fly, he would be considered a conscientious objector, meaning you have sworn to defend the United States of America against enemies, foreign and domestic. So from that standpoint, he was not doing what he had sworn to do. And all of his was from a personal standpoint, meaning his fiance told him, who was also in the military, well, if you fly, I'm not going to marry you. And so he refused to fly, which I was shocked. And so the member of Congress came to me and he said, I need some answers. I said, I already have your answer. And the answer was, if you don't go on this mission, we're taking your wings, aviation wings, and it's going to be pretty much over for your career. And so we passed this information on to the congressman. He passed it on to his constituent, who was the mayor. And in the end, the young lady, he didn't fly, the young lady, she broke up with him. And so, again, when you have a leader, and I had a leader that came to me and said, hey, I need you to find out, do some research on this. I didn't really have to do any research, so I already knew. And so he put himself in that conscientious objector position. And he's not flying to this day, not unless he was flying commercial, but it's already in his record. So I imagine that would have still been very difficult because it was dishonorable discharge. And when you look at all the taxpayer dollars that went into training this individual to become a pilot, you see now why it was so important that he not take this personal position, but rather to defend the country that he has sworn to defend. And so that's another example that if you're in that leadership position and your manager comes to you, which the manager for me happened to be the legislative uh, manager for me in the congressman's office. And again, I was an employee and I was a military, still paid by the Pentagon, however, on a special assignment. And so that's what happened. And so I've given you three scenarios, one with the leader as a title, one as a supervisor, and then one as an employee. And they're all kind of enmeshed, but it gives you another example of that when you have that title of leader, that you have to really have a vision. You must be able to communicate that vision to your staff, to your organization. And then you have to have the key people in place in that managerial who will conduct and handle and manage the workflow to the employees. And again, you don't have to have the title of leader to be a leader. You will be a leader as an employee. You will be a leader as a manager, and you'd be, of course, the leader, designated leader who's heading up the organization as a whole. So it's important that you understand all of these differences. But I wanted to give you this example today, especially that one about that special project working with the foreign government on our allies, because again, I was not in the designated leader position by title, but my role was unique to help the manager and the leader with the title, who happened to be the President of the United States of America, to help them solve the problem that they have. And their problem was ensuring that our allies are well equipped and they can defend themselves, which I think is a very noble thing to do. And it played a great role in mine, and maybe yours may not be that way. But again, if you have special projects, like if you're sending food to another country or to another state, that's very important. Or medical supplies. See, there's so many different things that we can be involved in, or you can be involved in, I can be involved with, that really makes a difference. And sometimes lives are literally on the line. And when we look at the different relief efforts that are out there in our country, when we have a tornado or we have an earthquake, we have hurricanes. I mean, it's happened every day. The only difference is sometimes we don't know about it when it's happening. We may find out a little bit later. And so it's very important that somebody is in a role or in a position that can make a difference in the lives of people, because after all, that's really what life is all about. It's about helping people and helping communities and helping our country and helping our allies as well. And even with our enemies, helping them to understand that there may be a better way to do this. You know, we don't really need a war, but we need peace, and we need it now. So this is what I want to share with you, and would love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel and share it with your colleagues, your family, and your friend. Again, the name is Paul Lawrence Vann, and I lead the YouTube channel Leadership is Influence. I'm really enjoying it. I'm just really getting started, but I'm really enjoying sharing this, and it's very comfortable for me because I had a online radio show for several years. I had probably 900 episodes, and then I have podcasts. I have over close to 250 episodes, and now this YouTube channel. And I've actually been on live TV before here in the Washington, D.C. area where I'm based, and I would be called in to share information on finances when people had that great recession. And I would come in and help people to better understand not to go through mortgage foreclosure and how to prevent having to go to court when you receive a summons as a result of not paying your bill, because a lot of people did, in fact, lose their jobs. So I came on and I shared insight in how people could avoid these things happening to them and give them some actual solutions to be able to solve the problems that they were having. So again, if you have any questions, you can reach me by email at info@paulvannspeaks.com. That's INFO, the at symbol, PAULVANNSPEAKS.com. And you can also go to the YouTube channel and you'll be able to see that as well. Well, this is going to end today's episode here at Leadership is Influence. And my time is up, and I thank you for yours. And I will see you on the very next episode. And I try to produce one every day if my time so allows. Have a good day, and thank you so much. And I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day.